I wanted to focus on today's first reading from the book of Genesis. We heard the account a few days ago of the fall of Adam and Eve, and we see the ongoing consequences of sin upon mankind, and in this case, in the children of Adam and Eve, in Cain and Abel. Now, if you recall, I had mentioned that sin alienates us from God, it alienates us from our neighbor, and it alienates us from ourselves. What is this alienation? It's separation, that there is a division, there's lack of harmony, and often there is conflict also, or opposition. So when we consider the offerings of Cain and Abel, notice how it mentions that Cain brings to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel for his part brought of the firstlings of his flock their fat portions. And what's implied here is that Abel's offering was a real sacrifice. In other words, he brought the very best, the most valuable part of his goods to offer to God, whereas Cain didn't. Now, because Cain was a tiller of the ground, some have argued that, how do you distinguish, the wheat grains, what's better and what's not better? So some people assert that it was also the attitude of Cain that was wrong and that was displeasing to God. In other words, he was just going through the motions. He really didn't want to honor God by means of this sacrifice. And so it's a reminder to us that when we come to church, what is the disposition of our heart? What is our disposition when we offer the sacrifice of Calvary made present on our altars at every Mass? But the reality is that if we have the wrong disposition in our heart, normally our sacrifice won't be as good also. So no matter which way you look at it, Cain was somehow lacking in regards to having the proper sacrifice, the proper offering towards God. And then notice that it's obvious to them, it's obvious to Cain that God was pleased with the sacrifice of Abel, not with Cain's, but God speaks to him. And he says, "Why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, you will be accepted. And if you do not do well, sin is lurking at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must master it." So God is not pleased with his sacrifice. He's indicating that it wasn't a true sacrifice. Cain is angry, and why is he angry? Well, he's envious of his brother because he has received the favor of God, whereas Cain didn't. And Cain feels that he is deserving of having the favor of God. So he's envious of this. And envy, if you recall, is one of the 7 deadly sins, as is anger. And when these deadly sins go unchecked, they often lead to mortal sin. So the 7 deadly sins, we call them deadly sins, not because they are mortal sins in and of themselves. They are not. But they often lead to mortal sin if unchecked. So God is telling him not to be angry. He's envious of his brother. And this envy, and even amongst people today, sometimes excessive envy, desiring the good that the other has, can often make a person feel more sorry for themselves. So the root of that is pride. So Cain is full of pride. He's selfish. He doesn't want to give God his very best portion. He has a wrong attitude towards God. He's envious of his brother. He's angry with his brother. And eventually he wants to kill his brother. And notice that he doesn't do this just, out of a passion. Sometimes when people are angry, they just sometimes do things that they afterwards regret. It's a premeditated act. He says to his brother, "Come, let's go out into the field." He has a special plan. Come out into the field, and in the field where nobody can see, I'll take care of you. And this is what he does. He kills his brother. Now, if you think about it, what a horrible crime. Sometimes people say that in modern times, because of television and seeing so much crime and violence on TV, we become desensitized. And that's not a good thing. So we've become desensitized to impurity, but also to all kinds of violent crimes. Imagine killing your own sibling. This is horrible. Today is Family Day, and the ideal is, of course, is that we focus on families. And what is a family? Well, father and mother, husband and wife, and usually children. But the relationship of siblings is very, very important. The ideal is that we are caring and loving towards our siblings. Now, yes, of course, we're going to clash. We're going to have differences of opinion, differences of preferences in many occasions. So there will be a lot of conflicts. But those conflicts are opportunities to try to better your relationship with your siblings. And every now and then I hear of people who don't even talk to their siblings. They're angry for one reason or another with their siblings and don't even talk to them. Like, that's not good. When we get older, as we get older, we may have a lot of friends even from when we were younger, but the ones that we are closest to is family members, including siblings. And the ideal is that siblings care for one another. So, it's very unfortunate, and we see this is the consequence of sin. So Cain, because of his selfishness and his pride, was already alienated from God. He didn't want to give God the proper sacrifice, or he didn't have the right attitude. But he's also alienating himself from his brother. And he ends up being alienated from his family. In other words, he fears that his family will take revenge, maybe kill him because he killed his brother Abel. And so he has to become a wanderer on the earth. He's alienated. And you see this interior alienation, which maybe we can talk more about on another day. But, deep down, Cain knew what was right. God even revealed to him, why are you angry? If you do well, you will be blessed. If you don't do well, these are the consequences. And he lies to God. He even lies to God. God asks him, where's your brother Abel? Am I my brother's keeper? The answer is yes, you are your brother's keeper. And sometimes people say to me, I'm not my brother's keeper. Yes, you are. We are our brother's keeper. And not just siblings, but for all of us. We all have an influence on everyone around us, everyone that we encounter. And when it comes to Christianity, we are all brothers and sisters in Christ. So we do have a responsibility towards each other. And today is the feast of the 7 holy founders of the Servite order. And these 7 men who aren't related, they come together. And they form a religious community. And in religious orders, they refer to each other as brothers. Or if it's a congregation of women, as sisters. Right? And they live together as a family. And they have this bond of friendship, this bond of union and caring for one another because they are truly brothers in Christ. And part of the reason, traditionally religious orders were founded is to give people an opportunity to truly live the Christian way. And of course, in the world that we live in, it's hard to do that. But you see, families are the foundations of society. Families are the building blocks of society. As John Paul II says, families are the domestic church. And so siblings, family members, spouses are called to have a loving relationship. Yes, there's going to be friction at times, but how do we deal with that friction? Do we blow our top? Do we say things that we shouldn't? Or do we learn self-mastery? Do we learn self-control? Do we learn how to negotiate difficult situations and to try to come to a reasonable compromise sometimes, or a reasonable solution to whatever problems may arise? This is the ideal. This is what we are called to do with family members, with friends, with co-workers, with everyone that we encounter in our lives.